We are back. The world has opened up and we're ready to. And as I talked about before, the control is from the foot that you're supporting your body weight with. That is the foot that is controlling that pressure, that's controlling the movement, that's directing the movement, how far, how fast, what direction. Everything is dictated by where the pressure is in the foot that you're using to support you for standing here on it and moving through the movement. And as I just did there, that toe of my foot did not leave the floor as I came way over here, because as we said before, that is your control even after you get on this foot. And you only move onto that foot when all of this pressure that is still on that foot is transferred into this foot, and then that can come up and come over here. Using both feet as much as you can through each movement to make it smoother, to make it easier, to stay more relaxed, to stay down in your stance, or even up in your stance. Either way, you're able to do it. It's maintaining that pressure in your feet where it needs to be for the movement you want to be doing. So we need to talk about that pressure in the foot, where it needs to be located. Inner movement becomes a little more specialized. And the reason for that is the movement. We're not just staying on one foot, we're moving our body into the direction we want to move into. For example, if I'm here and I want to move straight to the side, or let's say I want to move at a diagonal that way, or, okay, I want to move that way. Now, I started from the same stance. I had my feet pretty much the same width. I had the same posture, which was fairly high, but 3 times I went into a different direction. And my shoulders, my hips, everything stayed in line, but this foot pushed me into 3 different directions. How did that happen? Specifically, how did that happen? Well, as I just said, the location of the pressure in your foot determines where your body will go, how fast it will go, and how far it will go. So in each one of those 3 examples I gave you, the pressure in this foot was slightly different. It had to be. It could not be the same and produce those 3 different results for our basic understanding of it. Somebody will find an exception to that, but we're talking about basic movements here. So to go straight to the side, which way did this foot need to push? It had to push into the floor straight to that side for my body to go straight over here. Now, where did I have the pressure in that foot? Well, let me do that at an angle here so you can see what's happening in this foot more, and I'm going to go straight over that way. Now, as I push over here, notice the heel comes up, just as it did here. So, where was the pressure located in this foot? Well, obviously, it had to be towards the inside of my foot to get my foot tilted functionally this way. So when I applied more pressure down into that foot, it was pushing down and that way. So it had to be on the inside. My foot was functionally tilted to get my body to move that way. But my heel also came up. So what's that tell you? That tells you the pressure was forward. I had more pressure in the ball in the toe area of my foot. So I was pushing out of the, let's call it the corner, the front inside corner or off the big toe of this foot. So that pressure on the inside of that big toe and ball area was pushing directly that way to move my body here. Okay, so I went straight forward on the third example. Where did that pressure need to be? Well, it had to be pushing straight back for one, and from everything we've dealt with, it couldn't have been on my heel because if I'd have pushed in, the pressure would have gone that way and I'd have gone backwards. So the pressure had to be out here. Same thing in the ball and toes of this foot, and it had to be more centered in the foot because that foot had to be at an angle forward down and fairly flat to be able to push straight back to get my body to go straight forward like this. Well, so when we are going straight forward like that, admittedly, the pressure is not exactly in the center of this foot, but it is closer to the center of the foot than this, or with the one that goes to the angle, because we're using for that propulsion forward, that push backwards, we're using the ball area and the big toe mainly for that. The other toes are contributing, of course, but that more structurally sound area and more structurally able area is where we're pushing from. So we're going to still call that the midline, even with that qualification, push straight back to push us straight forward. And there I tipped a little bit forward because that knee didn't come down like it should have come down. And that way we can tip forward and do tip forward. So maybe I did that on purpose. Well, actually not. No, that was my mistake. Okay, so this, to go forward, the pressure is in the quote unquote center of the foot, pushing straight back. To go sideways, I had it on the inside of my foot, pushing straight that way to go that way. So to the angle, well, common sense says, well, I had to have it towards the inside and towards the front a little bit more and towards the middle a little bit more, but not as much to go there. So yeah, it was coming right off the big toe, but there again, the pressure was inside of the foot a little bit more than it is here. Now, you can verify all of this yourself. All you have to do is get yourself stable, stay relaxed, and feel where that pressure is from. And you'll need to put a fine focus on this, a focus of feeling exactly where that pressure is. Get all the other stuff out of your mind and just feel where the pressure is the most as you're doing the movement. And especially when you're right here, this is when you're still pushing in here and you can feel where that pressure is. And when you do that, you can feel how it's changed slightly in that foot. And that's the only way you're going to understand this to your satisfaction. Not just taking my word for it. At first, yeah, okay, while you're learning this other stuff. But then as you get better with this, you need to fine tune it to you. So you know what that feeling is down there, and you know where it is not because your body moves somewhere and you want to go over here. But more than that, you want to know where it is before you start the movement because that pressure location dictates where your body is going to move. So you need to have that pressure set before you get there, before you start the movement. What sets the location of the pressure in your feet? It's your posture. Shoulders set the location front, back, and side to side. Yeah. And down here, you're generating more force, more pressure into that foot to help control your body to stay stable and to power that movement. So your posture must be relaxed to set and control that pressure so the movement comes out to be the way you want it to be. And just like it was before you start having these problems, once you get all this stuff down, you're not going to have to think about where that pressure needs to be. It'll just be like autopilot, like it was before when movements were just there because you could do them. It'll be, I want to go there, boom, your posture is set. And that's natural movement. People don't go through all this. They just naturally set it, and many times, a bunch of times, you're setting it as you're starting the movement. People with this problem with the restricted postures, the guarding, especially stiffening, you have to take a few seconds and get there to get that where you want it to be, but then you have to be able to stay there, and that is the trick. Because standing in one place and just doing this weight shifting, it's a little bit easier to stay down in the stance. And you've seen some of the clips that I've shown where, yeah, they were just in that stance and not moving anywhere from right here, but still problems. And I used to do the same thing. So that's a big key of what you need to continue to do with all the game exercises that we did before in previous videos about dribbling the ball, dropping the ball, catching and squatting to catch it, all the squatting, using the wall, the corner, the this, the that, any other games you want to play. You have to be continuing to do those because now that you're going to be moving, that's when it's all going to come back big time for many of you. Many of you will be fairly good at dropping that ball and coming down, catching it, and even dribbling. And with the dribbling, start moving around a little bit because that's part of what you're using to prepare yourself just for what we're doing now. So you can't stop doing those games. You have to continue those. What is going to be the big problem? Well, the big problem in this movement from side to side, and especially when we start moving forward, it's going to be the same problems that you're working on with all the other exercises. Knees, the biggest one, knees not wanting to flex, not wanting to stay flexed and coming up too quickly and too straight, and shoulders not coming or staying forward. It's always the same things. First biggest problem you're ever going to have, and it's going to continue. Second biggest problem. This problem makes that problem worse. This is easier to correct. This, you're going to be working with this, most of you, a lifetime. I still have some issues here. Not anywhere close to what they were before, but if I stand up here too long and don't move, I get a little bit stiff. If I'm out there trying to get my golf game going, and I'm having a day where I'm just not able to relax very well, my shoulders are coming back, my knees are coming up, it's going to be with you. It's part of who we are. It's part of what we are now, living the effects of our disorder. But there is a negative connotation that comes with that, a neurodegenerative disorder. I want you to try to envision yourself that I'm not disordered here. All these problems that I'm having, instead of considering it as a disorder and the problems, this is your new order. This shrinking cerebellum is us. It's not something separate. It's us. It's not going to go away. It's not going to change. So our new order is what we have. These clumsier movements, these other issues. So this is what we need to learn how to deal with. And if we don't, then we are out of order. We do have this disorder in our posture and our movement. So it's up to you to make some order out of your situation. What other choice do we have? You're not trying to fight this like some people promote. It's not a fight because this is all you. You're not fighting yourself. You're learning how to cooperate with yourself. You're learning how to make peace with yourself. You're learning how to relax and make order out of all this chaos that's going on. Stop fighting it. There's no fight ataxia. You're only fighting yourself when you're talking that way, when you're thinking that way, when you're acting that way. I know what you mean by it, but stop looking at it as this struggle. Now, with all this information, you can start looking at it as, okay, how do I deal with myself better? How do I get control of myself better? How do I relax my order into a more workable situation? You'll be a lot better in the long run. So, controlling these shoulders and controlling these knees and keeping them in the posture you want to be in or that you need to be in for the movement is paramount. Gaining better control here. So work on all those exercises. So going from one foot to the other foot is nothing more than a complete transfer of body weight, as we talked about in the last video. Complete transfer of body weight onto this foot to be able to move onto this foot and then onto both feet in a controlled fashion. Controlling your posture to control the location of the pressure on your feet. So your body moves where you expect it to move more often than not, and to get away from all this stuff. Now, the control. We need to be able to control the direction of the movement of our body. We need to be able to stay on a path, on a line, so to speak. If I want to go in this straight line, I need to keep this pressure consistent in my feet. Now, could you tell if I stayed on a straight line there? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a little bit ambiguous. So I have my trusty Swiffer stick that's going to work as my guideline that you can watch for how well I control the pressures on my feet. And this is what you need to practice. I'm going to stay about this far away from that, I hope. And I want to go down to that end and maintain this same distance. I'm not going to look down there. I'm just going to feel the pressure of my feet as I come to the side. What happened? Well, for one, I'm angled out this way right now. That was about the right distance it was before. So what happened? Let's see that again. Better? Yeah? Same distance. Now, if I maintain the same distance away from that rod on the floor, what does that tell you about the pressure of my feet? It tells you I use the same pressure in this foot to push me into each stride each time. It tells you that my shoulders stay where they're supposed to be and my knees stay where they're supposed to be. Nothing changed and or I compensated for it with my body posture as I went through there. And that's what you're striving to achieve. Now, when you're doing this, and I suggest you do not use something like this on the floor, just put a tape line or use the planking on the floor as a marker, or stand in front of the counter about one of your foot lengths away from it. You can do the same thing with the wall. Test yourself to see how far or how close you're coming to it. So with that, I'm going to change something, and you tell me, let me get here, and you figure out where the pressure is on my feet. Where was it? What happened? Let's do it again. This time I'm going to change it a little bit more. I came further away from the line. I came from there and I angled back this way. That tells you immediately where the pressure was in my feet. It was towards my heels. And that created me to drift backwards because more of that pressure was pushing forward as it was also pushing me to the side. So instead of going straight to the side this way, it was pushing that way at a little angle. Okay, so I start back here, set it up again. I came closer to the line. Well, you already know where the pressure was. It was a little bit too far forward. Now the pressure was pushing back at an angle that way, slightly at an angle, to cause me to start bending forward or slanting forward on that line. So you need to do these experiments with yourself. You need to test it. Because with that, you're fine tuning the location of pressure in your feet by fine tuning the control of your posture and relaxing into it. So vary things and feel it. Feel the difference of taking a bigger stride, feeling where that pressure is, especially right here to feel it better. And then take a smaller stride and feel the difference where the pressure is located in your foot. Here, of course, with the smaller stride, like we said before, it's closer to the middle of the foot. When we take the bigger stride, it's closer to the edge of the foot or right on the edge of the foot. And you can see how my foot is tilted when I get out there in those different strides, especially the strides way out there. When you're doing this, also try not, unless you have the ability and can do it, no problem, try not to do this. And many of you will do that without even knowing it or realizing it or without preparing for it. And the spasticity that you have and just learning how this push works and all this heel lift and the whole bit, you'll overdo it. So, baby steps. Just use baby steps. And what do I mean by that? I say about half of when you're moving forward, half of the length of your shoe. And about the same thing when you're going sideways. Maybe you can say the width of my shoe, but keep it very small because here it's controllable. You want to go faster? Pick them up and put them down faster. Many people will say, but I need to take big strides because I need to move faster. No, you don't. Because if you can't control the small strides, the short ones, you damn sure can't control the bigger ones. And the bigger ones will get you into trouble quicker than the smaller ones. Here, there's less room for mistake. And there is increased room for correction. Here, You're more of an extreme. So it's a little bit more risky. Practice the short strides. Practice doing this in place. And what are you practicing there? Well, a few things. You're practicing on controlling your posture. Knees, shoulders. You're practicing shifting weight. And here you can see that I'm still staying towards the inside of my feet. So I'm not out here towards the center. I'm using that inside pressure to help me go back and forth easier. That's fine. You're not working on coming all the way with that. You're working on keeping them in the same spot. Why? There's your control for when you're moving 1 foot to the next. 1 foot to the next, staying in one spot. Pick a spot on the floor. Try not to watch it. Because when you do, one, many of you are then going to be coming forward because you'll have too much pressure forward in your feet. Two, you do it out of old habit. So get used to bringing your eyes up. Now, where should you have them? Right on the horizon. In the house, it's about where the light switches are and the doorknobs are, about that height. You have to remind yourself about this forever. I still have to remind myself many times to pick up my eyes because I'll gravitate down here out of old habits that are very hard to break. Can be done. So learn to look here to get this pressure stabilized on your feet, a better posture, and just control this. And then just move and feel, okay, I want to come forward just a little bit. Now I want to come back just a little bit. Feel how it's these very small movements up here that changes that pressure down there, that changes where you go. Very, 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 very small. Almost imperceptible when you're doing this small stuff. Very fine control. Very fine, relaxed control. And now it's dynamic control. We're moving, baby. We're moving. We're going from one foot to the other foot, learning how to control the pressure on the feet. And when you can do that, it's great. Then you're coming close to be ready for doing it going forward through that flexing foot. Here, this foot needs to be flexing too. You're coming off of the ball area and toes of the foot, pushing you sideways. Now, for those of you that are still a little bit stiffened and gardened, yes, you can keep that pressure flat and use the whole foot, the entire length of the inside of that foot. You can do that. That's okay. Then as you gain better ability, then you'll be able to do it from a heel left. So use the entire foot to get used to that. But when you do, be careful. It's going to be so easy to be back here with your shoulders. Be too easy to push yourself back. So be very careful with that and work it here. And for those people still having a problem with that, you need to go back to the dropping that ball and coming down low. You need to be dribbling the ball, all that stuff. And for those of you that have a problem with staying forward on the ball of that foot, using that flexing foot, well, you need to do some of the same stuff. Only you need to be a little more inventive and do a little bit more advanced activity with that to get off of that heel, to get on to the ball area of that foot, to get that foot flexing. Another thing that comes to my mind is about this time, some of you would be saying, my God, I've been doing that and I got better, but now I feel stuck and I can do that pretty good, but then when I try to do this, I'm just a mess. Well, one, it takes time. Two, remember all that stuff that we've been working on prior to this fourth stance was just being in one place. Everything was static for moving on the floor, starting to get dynamic in the body, but now you need to make everything dynamic, and you need to make the movement more purposeful than what it was before. Yeah, you had a purpose here, but now we have the purposeful movement, and that is a big difference. And many people will not incorporate that into their learning routine, and they're stuck with just, I'll just do these exercises and I'll be fine. Well, yes, you'll be fine for that, but when it comes to moving, when it comes to changing the pressures on the feet and getting these feet to flex and going from one foot to the other foot, then it becomes something totally different and they're unprepared for it. So, with all of this, keep in mind you need to incorporate purposeful movement. And that means you are controlling it, and it's more refined and more complex than just letting your body go wherever it wants to go. It's directing it, controlling it, smoothing it out, relaxing into it. There are many different ways and techniques you can use to get there to be able to do that, but it involves doing it, doing the movement, practicing it. I don't care what it is, as long as it's something that challenges you in the appropriate direction. I stumbled into ballroom dancing, and it worked for me. You can do the same thing with martial Tai Chi. You can start to get into it with yoga and incorporate all sorts of other stuff to do what you want to do. You can do it with just simple games, sporting games of how do I do this better? How do I get out there and move my feet on the racquetball court? That's a good place because you have nothing but walls around you. It's not that big of a room. Sometimes the only window in is right in the door, that you can get in there and hide. And that's what I did to supplement what I was doing, including the dancing, to get a little bit better. How do I use what I'm learning just a little bit better? Racquetball racket, not that expensive. Unless you're pretty good with your movements. If you're mild, fine. If you're moderate or more, don't start with a racquetball because they're very bouncy and they're harder to keep up with. Get a tennis ball. You can whack the heck out of them and they won't bounce as much. And if you get the low compression tennis ball, it'll bounce around even less. You can also get the foam balls that are in toy stores and whatnot to use. Toy baseballs, softballs. They even have the practice tennis balls that are made of foam that you can use. And then you can smack the heck out of them and they don't go all that far. And if they come back and whack it or whatever, no big deal. Just foam, piece of cake. But there it's teaching yourself how to stay down, hit that ball, rotate in the confines of that room where there's nobody there. You'll do the same as I did at first. You will fall, you will stumble, you will have to give yourself permission to just move your feet to go after the ball, to try to hit the ball. You'll figure it out. But you have to put yourself through those paces to learn what you need to learn. Otherwise, just the simple thing of doing this in a controlled fashion, controlling where you want to go, and when you're coming forward, right now, walking, do it the same way. Keep on your flat feet, but It's the same thing. Small, 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 small. Walking in place. Remember when you stand up and you're a little bit stiff and you need to start walking? Well, give yourself time to relax with that. And then when you start, walk in place and then start. Even sideways, walk in place a little bit and then go. And your body, as you relax, your body will self-adjust when you relax, and your strides will start to be a little bit bigger. But be careful. The bigger stride is not the better stride. The shorter, more controlled stride is key. Stay short. Stay in control. Stay relaxed. Things will start working for the better for you. Things will start to be a little more enjoyable. Have a good day.